Super BS. Super BS. Super BS. Super BS. Super BS. Super BS.
Heyo, welcome to Super BS Gamecast. This is your boy Vit Vit Mesquite, like the chicken sandwich, or my mother knows me as Jake, coming to you not live, previously recorded, but we did a little survey and found out I was the most popular host on the show, so I've been trying to be a little bit more proactive and doing some interviews so that you don't have to listen to the other tool bags on the show. But special guest, there's a game you've heard me talk about previously a couple times in the past, a little game called Poncho. Well, I've been lucky enough to get one of the developers to, for some reason, agree to do an interview with me. So I believe he's on right now. Can you say hi, Danny?
Hi.
Do you go by Danny or Dan, or what do you go by?
Danny's cool.
Danny's cool. Cool. I got another friend named Danny, so that'll
There's a lot of us out there.
make no difference. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Danny. I'm a game designer at Delve Interactive, and I try to make games that are a bit different, I guess.
All right. Well, first off, thanks so much for being on the show. Again, I can't say it enough. I appreciate it. It helps, I don't know, give us hope.
Oh, no worries.
And it's really on a couple of levels. It's always fun talking to developers, different creative people. I don't do video games, but I write. But I always find it interesting talking to whether it be artists, fellow writers, video game developers is a fun one. So appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like we're all kind of in it together in a way.
That's cool. Sorry,
yeah. No, sorry. Quick question: how long you been in the industry? How long you been at this?
I guess coming up for something like 8 years now.
8 years.
It's been a while. 7 and a bit years. Yeah.
Did you always know you wanted to go into that, or?
No, I was originally I wanted to be a writer.
Hey.
Yeah, I wrote some quote unquote novels or half novels when I was a teenager. They're obviously really crap, but I don't know. I had fun doing it. That's what I wanted to do. And then when I was about 18, I realized that the games industry was actually a viable career, and it's not, And I was a huge gamer, and still am. So I just dropped all my applications to universities for creative writing or literature courses, and went straight to doing game design and coding and stuff. So yeah.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I know a few writers, and these are published authors, and they actually put some stuff out, and even they have kept their day jobs. And these are people that have 3-book deals, and they just, because unless you're like a New York Times bestseller, it's more of a side income than a real viable option for providing for your family, which that
was always what I thought. It was always like I wanted a job where obviously I could pay rent or for a mortgage or whatever, but working in as a novelist was bad before the Kindle arrived, and now it's just
Right. No, it's interesting, and I know a little bit about it, but that is not what we're going to dive into today. So,
yes.
So Delve Interactive, I believe you have a partner you work with quite a bit, right?
Jack O'Dell. He's my sort of partner in crime. He works in all the design with me, and it's good for holding me back when I get too crazy with my designs. And he's also a really good composer and sound designer. So
we'll talk a little bit later. But Poncho's soundtrack and it was one of my things I enjoyed most about it, actually. And I've talked about it in the past, and we'll talk about it a little bit later when we get to the music part. But
cool.
So it's just you two. Do you have people that you kind of bring on board, or do you know?
Yeah, so we're like the main two guys. But we have other artists and stuff. I mean, for Poncho, we had Matthew Weeks, who did all of the art for it. I mean, we had done all the art ourselves before that. Jack stuff was pretty okay, but we wanted to get like a real professional to try and bring out what we wanted in our heads. So we brought Matthew Weeks on to do some art for that, and he's also done some art for our next game, Change, as well. But Change has actually got like 4 different artists working on it at different times.
Cool. So without trying to make this a 2-hour podcast, I want to talk a little bit about Poncho, and then because it's an older game now, 3-4 years, like that sounds about right.
It was its 2nd year anniversary in November.
Okay, so 3. Okay, and then you have a new game coming out, and so one of the things we want to try and do is, instead of just talking about the old one or the new one, at least I want to try and talk about what you think you learned about the development from Poncho and how that's influenced going into your second game. And I think, listeners that, because I think we get a decent amount of listeners that want to at least one day make a video game. So I've always found this kind of stuff interesting. So if you don't mind, we kind of do that. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll go Poncho real quick. Kind of some blanket questions, tell us what was about it, what inspired it, just kind of like your story a little bit as you went into Poncho. So yeah, go ahead.
So me and Jack had made a couple of small mobile games before. You can't buy them now because they were just first games when we were like 20 or something, and they were kind of, one was called Epic Beard, where a beard is chasing like a little jelly thing, you have to run away, and another one was like a launch game about a bubble floating around. But I did all the art myself, so that's probably what needs to be said about that. So we did those, and yeah, they got some decent art, but then we decided we wanted to make a proper full indie game, sort of on the scale of Braid or Super Meat Boy or something, and we were trying to decide what to do, and Jack came up with this character design of this robot with a poncho. He had a backpack at that time, but he sent that to me, just a little bit of pixel art he did, and I got really excited. I loved that character, and then we worked together on the sort of the details of trying to have a unique mechanic to make it worth playing, because we never want to do anything that anyone else has done. So we came upon this idea of it being sort of inspired by Sega games, like side scrollers, but thinking if there were mountains in the background and stuff, but you could never actually go there. I mean, that would kind of make it 3D, but it'd be cool if you could just press the button and go into like a background area layer or something. And that's where that kind of came off. And then we had all these different mechanics around that. And that's how it came to be in like 2012 or something like that.
No, and for the listeners that may or may not have checked it out, Poncho, and I've talked about it in the past, the mechanics was awesome because, and I kind of compared it to traditional animation where it would kind of be layered, and, cameras get to zoom in. And when you look at like the old school Disney animations, that's how they got the effect of, the different layers. So, I would explain that, you left, right, and it lets you actually jump back and forth within the layers of the level. And, I thought that was rad. I remember watching the trailer for it and thinking, oh, I've, never seen that before. It's kind of like when Fez came out and you pressed left, right, and it rotated the whole screen. I hadn't really seen that before. And you'd see every once in a while, like with, what is it? Not Paper Mario. The Mario that's on the Wii where you kind of change dimensions. You see kind of games like these, and I've always really enjoyed them, and I kind of wish there was more. And I'm hoping, one day we kind of get, I don't know if it'll happen like a Poncho 2 where you get to dive into it a little bit more, but that was super cool. I think you guys did a great job with that.
Oh, thanks. That's good to hear.
Was it kind of hard to make that mechanic? Because I hadn't really seen it used before. So was it kind of you guys figuring it out yourselves?
Yeah. So probably like the first year of development. I mean, for the first 2.5 years or so, we both had full-time jobs and stuff, and Jack was studying at university for some of it. But yeah, we were just trying to get that mechanic working with prototyping and building some test levels. Originally, like the levels were all built out of 3D blocks and stuff, kind of voxel style, but with 2D characters walking around. And eventually we switched to just full 2D artwork, but layered in a 3D kind of sense. But yeah, it took a long time to get it to a place where it felt good, because There's another game that's sort of similar. It came out while we were developing, which is annoying, but it's called Mutant Muds. It's on the 3DS. Have you heard of that?
I have not, no.
Well, it's kind of like people were saying, when Poncho came out, people were saying it's just like Mutant Muds. But in the same way, they said it's just like Fez, where, it's pixel art and it's got a spatial mechanic of some kind. But Mutant Muds, it's sort of like Cave Story. You're running around with a gun and it's platforming and shooting things. But you can step on specific blocks that would send you into a background or foreground in a kind of way. But
yeah,
in Poncho, you can do it anywhere. So it was difficult getting it to a place where, so if you shifted, you wouldn't get stuck inside of a wall, or and trying to make it design levels, because you're sort of designing 3 levels at the same time with the 3 layers. Later in the end, there's like 6 layers. So it was difficult to get it to a point where it felt good, but I think we got there in the end.
Yeah, I remember some of the, the naysayers, whatever, they would complain about the functionality of switching, and then when I actually played it myself, I didn't find it particularly hard. Occasionally you'd have to figure it out, but in Poncho, when you die, you come right back. So I was like, oh, it wasn't nearly as bad as at all, and I enjoyed it. Actually, I enjoyed the mechanics. But you're never gonna, whenever you do an artistic endeavor, whenever you try something new, you're always gonna actually, statistically, you're gonna have more people that dislike it than like it. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I think Poncho is kind of like Marmite in the gamer community. Like, people either seem to really love it or really hate it.
Yeah,
it started out with like a 90% rating on Steam. The console versions are a bit bugged because it costs money to patch those, but among other reasons, things with publishers and stuff. But I'm still proud of it, and it's nice getting messages and emails from people that say they played it or their children played it and had a really good time. And probably the best experiences was taking it to trade shows like EGX, which is sort of like PAX over here. And just I remember this one little girl, she was like 10 or something, she just kept dragging her mum back to our booth so she could play the game more. And it was fun watching people play at the same time, just grown adults just throwing the controller down in frustration, because it is a bit rage quitty for some people.
Yeah, I agree, but I totally agree, because in my mind it kind of joins the, when my kids get a little older, I'm going to play the old school Marios, I'm going to play the old school Donkey Kongs, I'm going to play, before they don't appreciate older graphics, and then I'm going to play Fez, and Poncho's on that list now too. I'm going to play all those things. I thought this game, and we'll get to the publishing and the financial and all that stuff a little bit later, but because it didn't do as well as I believe you'd hoped, obviously.
Yeah.
And but again, we're not quite there yet. But talking about reaching a small audience, but whenever you do something new or something, and you get some people that kind of see what you were trying to make, it's unfortunate when it doesn't reach as many people as you hope. But you don't know until you get out there and try it, and then maybe the next time you go out and try something, you can reach it a bit bigger. But again, I'm kind of getting off track here. So let's see, development, art, the soundtrack. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was, I thought it fit. Some soundtracks, they just fit the game, and they kind of help pull out the essence of the game. I give Donkey Kong the thorn levels where you're flying around, or the underwater music as an example, and Halo it just kind of fits. So was like the feel for the soundtrack there from the beginning? Was it something you guys kind of experimented with?
I think it's difficult because Jack's not with us, but right. I met Jack in secondary school or high school, and we met and realized we both liked the same games and had the same influences, and he was dead set on being a video game composer at the time. And it's difficult to find someone who does music who just really wants to be a video game composer that has some talent, and he has it. And because he's also part of the game design process, he's already in the same kind of headspace with me. And I'd come up with these level designs and various scenes in the game, and sort of say maybe something like this piece of game music, and send him a link to something. And then he'd be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll try something like this, and we'll go through like several iterations and have something really cool at the end. And same with like the trailer music and stuff like that. He's really good at what he does.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and for all your listeners, go out and buy it. If you can go to YouTube and listen to some of it just to kind of feel it out. But I recommend.
It's on Spotify as well.
Yeah, when I was younger, I would just listen to stuff, but now I got a little older, and if I like something, I buy it just because I like to support the artists. So it's
that's cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that sounds about right. High schoolers don't know what they're doing. They just whatever they can get for free. But when you get older, if you guys can buy it, I recommend buying it. It's a fun soundtrack. I've been listening to it for while I drive. Let's see. All right. Well, I know it wasn't quite the funnest part of the job, but can we talk a little bit about working with the developers and putting it out there, and then how that went for you on Poncho, and then and I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit so that when you talk about your new game, which we'll get to, you can talk about things you're going to do differently and things like that. So, because I know it had some problems and difficulties, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did a big post-mortem on this that Kotaku also wrote about, but
I've read it as well, but for our listeners that haven't, if you want to kind of go over it a bit and talk about that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, we made a lot of classic mistakes, which was going all in on an indie game. I mean, we were pretty confident because we've been given the green light by Nintendo and Sony to put the games on their platforms. Microsoft said no because we gave it to Sony first, which is fair enough. If you're releasing on different platforms, you want to get it all out there at the same time usually. But unless it's a hit, in which case they're happy to have it any time.
Right.
But so we ran a Kickstarter after about 2.5 years of development, and we only got to like 33% of our funding. We'd taken the game to various trade shows and things like PAX and stuff. That's just in the UK, and the response was really good. Everyone seemed to really like it, and we got a load of YouTubers putting up videos of it, and we thought we'd do pretty well. Unfortunately, we were pretty much ignored by press. I mean, I know they've got a post about games that are going to give them the hits and stuff. So Poncho was pretty unknown. So I mean, when it was just the three of us, me, Jack, and Matt, it was difficult to put time aside for proper marketing and stuff. But we thought we put a lot of time into it and got a decent amount out there. But yeah, so it failed the Kickstarter, and we had, but because we took it to EGX, which has like close to 100,000 people coming, it is about almost as big as PAX. We got a load of publishers got in contact with us after seeing the booth and playing the game, and we got a bunch of different offers from publishers, and we went with Rising Star Games, who were a bit more local. They were the only one that were actually in the same country as us, so we could actually talk to them face to face on a regular basis. And they offered us basically what our Kickstarter was going for, which was I think something like 25K. And it all seemed good at the time. they were very, very friendly to us, getting us signed and stuff. And I mean, their marketing teams and they're great people and stuff. It's just more the guys at the top that are a bit not good. And it's difficult. I can't remember I don't know if I've said this in public before, but there were other offers we got. I don't want to name drop the publishers, but there were some pretty big AAA kind of style names out there publisher wise, and one of them offered us 100K to make the game, which would have been great, but they wanted it, and we had a meeting with them, just a Skype meeting, and they wanted to change the name of the game and change this and that. So we were just like, well, if you're talking that way straight away, we're not gonna. Right. We don't feel good. We're happy being poor if it means we can do what we want with the game. But unfortunately, that wasn't a good choice. I think we were just too arrogant back then, thinking, we're artists, we're not going to prostitute our work.
No.
So yeah.
I remember seeing the South Park guys talking about in an interview saying that I think they were joking, but they were like, our plan was always to sell out, and it was just how quickly can we get to sell out to make a lot of money? And that was our goal. And I got a kick out of that. Anyway.
That's pretty good.
So you went with that's I didn't know that yet. But yeah, I'd be turned away too if someone came in and said, here's a bunch of money, but we're gonna change it, before we even get to see it. So I can see that.
But looking back, I totally would have not just based on how things went down with the publisher we chose, but just based on how, having been through development, I would have taken that money. The game would have been so much better. As it was, I mean, this has already been talked about in the post-mortem we posted, but the money we actually got ended up being 25k, but we actually received 21k. The remaining 4k was meant to be once it had been ported and released on all platforms. So essentially that money wouldn't be able to be spent on the game, which was annoying, but because we hadn't budgeted for that, and that kind of just put a ripple throughout the rest of development that kind of ruined it. And then Rising Star just stopped listening to us. I mean, they seem to be doing okay with getting the game out there. They took the game to Gamescom and PAX and EGX, and another one here in the UK called Insomnia and stuff. Oh no, we did that one. There was a few ones that we did ourselves, but I don't know. It felt like they were doing things in a very autonomous way, where it was a bit like, this is how you publish a game. You just, write this copy paste press list and email and do all this. And like none of the big press did a review of our game apart from Destructoid, who we got in touch with ourselves because I had a good email rapport with Jonathan Holmes at the time, who was one of their senior editors or editor-in-chief for a time, I think. So it ended up with the game kind of not selling as much as we'd hoped. It came out November 5th, 2015, and sold something like 300 copies in total, or less. No, it was more like 250 copies. And we were hoping for about 10,000.
Right.
So, as it stands, we still haven't made any money from the game. Although I think we're about to.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's basically set up so that, because Rising Star put 21k into the game has to make that much after taxes and after they take their cut and after the platform holders take their cuts, etc. So it's been some good months, especially when we've been in a humble bundle or something. But the game's sitting at around 35, 40k copies in total, but most of those are like 99 cents copies kind of thing.
Right. As time goes, no. Is just as time goes on, has it sold better? This is totally new to me. Has word gotten out? Have you been reached by just people like myself? I found it after it had already been out, and I was like, this game looks really cool. And I read some reviews, and I picked it up, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm just curious.
Not really. I mean,
All right.
I think that kind of thing usually happens with roguelike games or games that are very easy to make streams of.
Fair enough.
So you do a stream of a game, so Binding of Isaac is a classic example where, Edmund Macmillan originally he was just going to sell it to a Flash website or something, but he put it on Steam and it sold a few thousand copies in the first week or something. And then it just kept going up and up and up and up. And he saw it was because all these people were doing YouTube videos of the game. But Poncho's not really like that a bit. I mean, it's kind of got a bit of that quality with the rage quit element, but because it can be very difficult and frustrating. Sorry, it's my dog Oscar. He's being annoying. Oscar, go sit. But no, it's just most games just, you get a big sale at release and then it sort of staircases down over time.
Right.
And then you get the odd spike when there's a Steam sale or something.
And that's the same with that's the same in all, in books. It's the same with movies. It's the same with music. And then you get, like you said, you get those the sleeper hits where you don't really know why, but they suddenly hit it and just grow like crazy. So
well, maybe still, who knows?
Yeah, right. After this podcast.
Yeah, this will be my big break.
This is the one. All of our China listeners and our one Ukraine listener. Anyway, okay. So then, if you don't mind, jumping into your new game a little bit.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, basically because of what happened with Poncho. I mean, we had quit our day jobs. I had taken out loans. By the time the game came out, I was jobless and about 12K in debt, not including my student loans.
Yep, perfect. Really want to position yourself for that next game.
Yeah. So it was basically I was couch surfing for a little bit, and it was, it's a bit weird realizing, if it wasn't for friends and family, I would be homeless at this point. So I'd made a prototype before of a homeless game for Game Jam, and I just made it. It was like the 24-hour Game Jam. I'll have to get what it's called, Tig Jam, I think, or something like that. And yeah, it got I saw some so there are some YouTubers who do streams of this particular Game Jam and stuff, and people were playing it for 45 minutes and stuff, and it was just it's kind of a homeless survival experience where you beg from people, you busk, you have to find work, you have to find a place to sleep, you have to kind of survive, and it's more of an emotional experience, and it's been difficult to try and make it a game you want to keep playing, but I think it's got some of that at least now. We're actually hoping to release really soon. So, but yeah, so I made that prototype something like halfway through Poncho's development, and decided to come back to it because I was pretty seriously depressed after Poncho came out, and things were really bad for a time.
I can imagine and understand. All right, so let's a few things. One, let's talk about production from Poncho versus going into this. What did you learn? What did you do differently? Let's start there.
I think things have changed because when we started doing Poncho, Steam was very viable.
Right.
There was several hundred games coming out on Steam per year, and now there's several hundred games coming out per month, at least. Especially now with Steam Direct, it's basically become like the App Store, but it's not as bad because their discovery system is pretty okay. That's where we got 90% of Poncho sales was that little, hey, you might like this game thing that shows on Steam all the time. When Poncho was first put on the front page, it was there in the new releases bit. Steam only puts games that are doing well in that section. And so every game when it comes out goes to that section, and Poncho was taken out of that category after about 3 hours. And we uploaded it and put it up at something like 6 a.m. in the UK time. So Americans weren't awake yet. Most British people weren't awake yet. So by the time we got to 9 a.m., it was off the front of the Steam store. So we kind of killed the game immediately. Yeah. Kind of sucked. So I guess the main thing with difference production between Poncho and Change is that we're not going so much all in. We're taking our time with it rather than we've certainly learned a lot of lessons and are a bit wiser. We're not, taking out loans to put more stuff into the game. We went into this project thinking it's going to be more of a new experience for players, an experimental kind of thing that we're not going to spend thousands and thousands on. I mean, we spent some thousands, but not in the 5 digits category.
Right. All right. So I might be jumping around a little bit, but I want to talk about a few different aspects. You talked about how, it might be kind of a hard topic to have fun playing for a long period of time. What did you do to kind of overcome that, or, try and get good gameplay out of it? Yeah, go ahead.
So it's fundamentally, in terms of genre, it's a roguelike survival with some kind of narrative elements. So there's there's a lot of random things. So at the end of each day, there's a night event where something can happen. You might get this a little bit of writing, bit of prose where you could get mugged, you could encounter someone who needs help, someone might be being antagonistic towards you. It's all these different kind of sort of almost story-based elements. that's all random. So it's like, and you're interacting with various things, and everything's got a random element. So it's got a bit of Skinner box kind of theory in there, where you click something and maybe something will happen. And I think from playtesting we've had with other people, like that seems to be the thing that keeps them going. And at the same time, they get really sad and depressed and feel alone when they get to the sad stuff. I think that's. I don't know, from playtesting, it's annoying, but I think people actually enjoy it more than they enjoy Poncho. But we'll see.
Oh, interesting. Okay, then what about music for this going in? What? I don't know.
It's definitely a bit different. We're going with much more. Poncho is kind of inspired by the retro era, so the music is very inspired by that in the same way that Fez's music is in a way. And Jack's a big Disaster Piece fan who did the music for Fez.
Yep.
And this, we wanted to go more emotional, so we got piano, we got cello, and various other elements. I mean, it's still a bit synthy because it's still pixel art, but it's meant to have a much more serious tone and a bit less gamey to try and get the feels out there.
No, that's good. I mean, I'll experience that soon enough. Once it comes out, I know Brian's playing it now, and I think he's gonna get some feedback to you. But I'm gonna do a review once it comes out. So
that'd be cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm excited too. So the funny thing with your games is both of your games I didn't see the Kickstarter till after they were both done, and I was like, okay.
Kickstarter's kind of dead now. It's I think it's had its heyday. Like 90% of the projects that go up there shouldn't be kickstarted,
right?
If not 99%, then. I think people have given up on Kickstarter now. They've put their money into it and not got anything back for various things, and there's been controversy with what was it, Yogscast, that Yogscast game, and they just took the money and left it.
Yeah, and we've talked about Kickstarter on the show. It's a risk, and it's just do you believe in the team that is putting the project up? And now with Kickstarter, so many people are putting stuff up there. It's just kind of.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of catch-22 because it's like people won't put money in if they don't think it's going to succeed, even if they want to put money into it.
Yeah,
and we saw that because that's why you have to get about like a third of your funding in the first couple of days. You need to have a big media blowout and get a big load of money in those first couple of days, so that by the end people are still putting money in because it'll go through. But in our case, it was at about 30% in the final days, and people were just looking at, well, that's not going to go through. I'm not going to waste my time with that. Right.
So now with your new game coming out, what's the plan to kind of get a good jump on release? What are you guys thinking about doing?
So because it's like I said earlier, with roguelikes being good for streamers, we're reaching out to as many streamers as we can find. We're looking to put out something like 1,000 keys out there for people to download and put streams out of the game, and we've got a much more streamlined marketing process of putting out press lists a bit further in advance. And I think also the main thing is not releasing on November 5th, which is the worst time to release an indie game. It's literally out of all 52 weeks, it's the worst week because I think we released it in a new Assassin's Creed and a new Call of Duty and Fallout 4 all came out in that week. So there was no way that press were going to talk about this little indie game. Even the indie sites were, busy, just at least doing talks about all these other big games. But yeah, so we're actually looking to release in May right now. We're going to do a proper release date announcement in the next month or so. Once we've finished it, the game's like 99% there. We've just got to finish the ending and add a couple more features and it's done. And then it's on to the next thing. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to play it. So, and you dabbled in it a little bit, just like the industry. I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on the industry as a whole and as an indie and as in actually being able to make money. Because now that, hundreds of games coming out on Steam every month, does it still seem as appealing for, developers like you, or is it just kind of like, not to be a little dark, but do you feel pretty optimistic about your chances with the new game? And
I think it'll help me put some money towards a mortgage. Or at least pay for some of the art of the next game. I mean, I'll never stop making games because that's my passion. But
right,
I'm not looking for it to. I mean, I work in the games industry for my day job anyway, so I'm not totally bereft. But I think now it seems very. I mean, people have talked about the indie game crash so many times. There will always be those few indie game hits of the year that make loads of money, like Stardew Valley or whatever.
Right.
But with so many games coming out, there's no way that the press can keep up with. Gems are going to get lost in the haystack. I think there's a 99% chance your game won't make money for you to go full time. So this time we're not quitting our day jobs.
Right.
We're keeping our day jobs because last time we quit them and then had nothing. So
that's kind of my take too, just from an outsider. I feel like it happened so quickly with video games. How quickly Steam went from being a super good, viable option for indies it just got overpopulated, really.
I mean, before you could upload your game would have to go through their review process. There was no community or public green light or curator reviews or anything like that. You just apply to get it on Steam, and you'd get your game on the front page almost guaranteed, and it would stay there for a good number of days. But now it's like I said, a few hours on the front page, and then it's like, well, people aren't buying this now at 6 a.m., so we're going to take it off the front page. It's very difficult. I mean, they've got their discovery system, but it's going to be. I think the only way for an indie game to be a hit these days is for streamers for it to be a fad for streamers to do streams of it on Twitch and YouTube. I think that's pretty much the only way. I mean, that's basically how word of mouth is spreading the indie game community now, I think.
Right. No, yeah. I think it's my expert opinion. I think that's it sounds like a good plan, and I'm excited for it change. So, how do I say this? I want to talk about change a little bit more, just because it's about surviving in the homeless community. So taking away from that, has it been interesting for you making the game, and then now as you look at the homeless community, if we can actually try and learn something from games? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was always my intention, was to have the players think about something, to give them a feeling. And it's a much darker game because I was going through a really dark period, and really only came out of that like several months ago. And yeah, I did a ton of research and tried to find a way to not push stereotypes at the same time as it being real, at the same time as abstracting it enough to work in the sense of a game. Because I mean, people talk about story in games, how if your main focus is the story, you might as well do a book or a movie. But there are two emotions that games can do better than those two mediums, which is guilt and pride. So definitely playing with the guilt a little bit. You go up to people when you click on them to beg from them. And, you kind of feel bad playing it at first, like, oh, this doesn't feel right, that this feels like I'm using homelessness in a way. But then, you beg for that person, they ignore you, and there's no response at all, and they just keep walking, you keep doing it, and eventually you might get a response, but most people ignoring it. It's trying to give the players that kind of feeling of empathy, I think. Because we were pretty on the edge financially a couple of years ago, it was something I just really felt I needed to do at the time. So I think that's where it mainly came from.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I when I read that that's what the game was, you guys definitely have, you said you wanted to make games that aren't the norm, and I think you guys are doing that. And,
yeah, we're definitely going for a very niche audience.
And I guess I fit that, which I think I do, because I tend to try and find games that I enjoy playing the big ones sometimes, but I try and find games that are a little bit more of an experience.
I think that's part of what's killed the indie community as well, because the indie community, its original rise came because AAA games was just, I mean, they still are most of the time, but AAA games was just franchise 1, franchise 2, franchise 3, sequel.
Right.
Just constant the same stuff over and over again. And people leapt onto the indie stuff because, hey, here's some games that are doing something different. In Braid, you can turn back time. Or, in Fez, you can turn the world around. And all these different things that AAA games weren't. Were just playing safe and just doing things that they knew would make money.
Yeah.
But now indie games are copying other indie games most of the time. Looking at Poncho, people were just, it's the same as Fez. Why would I not just play Fez? We got that a lot. Pretty much any post anywhere about Poncho, someone saying it's like Fez.
Which is funny because it's not. I'm a big Fez fan, and I was reading comments of, it's Fez 2 or this, but I looked at the game and I took a little bit of a deeper look, and I was like, I mean, kind of, but not really, in my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, it's pixel art and
right.
A couple of times, I think it's also got to remember the gaming community isn't fully made up of people who know games and stuff. I mean, I saw some comments that were just like, it looks just like Terraria. And it's like, well, there's differences between different pixel games. But some people will look at a pixel art game and think it's the same kind of deal, I think.
Yeah, and then you realize, half the people leaving comments are like 10-year-old trolls, and it's like...
yeah.
And then you get, older people like us where I'm like, okay. And I've talked about this on the show. I got one kid, another kid coming. I don't get to play 30 games a year anymore. I get a couple, and I've become very selective on
Yeah, I'm the same with AAA games. It's like it's like they boast, it's got 5 million hours of gameplay. It's like, well, I don't want that. I just want a good experience that I can do in like a day.
No, and we've talked about the show. It can be a very short game. It could be a game that's 3 or 4 hours, but you set down your controller and you're like, that was fun. That was an experience. I got so tired of the same game getting put out with. In fact, sometimes they'd put out the same AAA game with like worse mechanics. And I'm like, wait, you guys are taking a step backwards here. So,
yeah.
But that's why I've turned really to the indie. 75% of what I play is more indie these days, and then I choose the gems of the AAAs. I'm excited to play Dark Souls on Switch again. So
yeah, I just started playing Bloodborne again for the first time. I died within 5 minutes, of course.
Right.
Then put it down for a little while.
But
I think like 90% of indies now compared to 2012. I think 2012 was the last good year for indies, in the broad sense. I think it's largely to do with Indie Game the movie. Like, people saw that and go, those, Ed McMillan and Tommy Refenes and all those guys, they're all millionaires now. Right. So I should.
I watched that movie.
Yeah, and that's why like 80% or 90% of indie games coming out now are copying other indie games to an extent, or that there's so many clones or asset flips and things like that.
Yeah,
they're just in it to make quick money, and they think it's going to be easy, and they have a big surprise waiting for them usually.
Yep, it's not going to get any easier, and it's funny how each medium went through this. When with the whole self-publishing and with indie movies, and it's just like everyone kind of jumps on the wagon, and a lot of people I know that are writers, they all kind of fall off, and then you either, I kind of did the same thing you did, where it's like, okay, the next book I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2.5 years to get it right, instead of writing it in like 6-7 months and having no one care about it. So I'll take 2.5 years, and maybe 10 people will care about it this time.
I think that's another thing that people really need to. I think people jump too quickly on. I mean, there are some people who just go, I'm going to make a game like this, but with different graphics and a different story, or a Flappy Bird clone. And there's others who, I think if once you've chosen what your game design is going to be, you've got to realize this is going to be 2 or 3 years of your life. That's going to be a big section.
Yeah.
And you've only got so many times before you die, so you've got to be really picky and not just go with something that's like another game. You've got to do something that's really yours, even if it's going to take you another 6 months to come up with that really good idea. Just keep thinking about it in your head. Don't go with the first thing that comes to you that you think you could make a good game.
Or do the first thing that comes to you, but do it real quick, just as a learning experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
if it's your first game, then sure, you need, I made that crappy Bubble and Epic Beard game, as my practice game. So
right.
I think if your first game, just make something quick, put it on iTunes, on the App Store or whatever, and do it for fun. Don't think you're going to be a millionaire sitting on a beach drinking cocktails.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Like I said, I'm just trying to make a decent side income at this point. So, all right. Well, Change. You think when do you think it's going to be out again?
Currently, we're looking at early May. That might change depending on if I want to add more stuff. Essentially, with Poncho, we we released it in November because we were like, we need to release it because we've got no money. And the publisher was like, yeah, we need to release it as soon as possible. And it was we should have waited till like March or something, really. But with Change, we're going to find the right timing to release it. And we're going to release it when it's completely ready. Poncho had a lot of stuff cut out of it. A lot of different mechanics and level designs were cut out, and even some core characters were cut out.
Yeah.
So we're really, this is a subject. It's a very touchy subject we're dealing with here. So we want to make sure we do it right. So once it's done, it'll be out. But it is going to be really soon.
Good. Sorry, my daughter is coming in here. So,
sorry,
sweetie, go away. I love it. So, and then what's it going to be released on?
Right now, we're looking at Steam and probably iPad.
Okay.
We haven't started porting to it yet, but I've worked in my day job. I work with mobile projects all the time. So,
okay.
It's going to be on Steam and iPad at first, and then if it does well on there, we'll look at getting it into some other languages like Spanish and French, and maybe getting it to work with a game controller and getting it ported to PS4 and stuff. But it's very easy getting a puzzle platformer onto a console, but not so much a game about homelessness. Probably we'll have to wait and see.
I was going to say, you're going to get on that. Yeah, I was going to say, can you get it onto that sweet Switch? But which, you know what though, Nintendo's, they're putting Wolfenstein 2 on it, and
Yeah, and I mean even the Binding of Isaac, which is it's about a naked child in hell crying tears into shit. So
I think Nintendo grew up a little bit and says is a little bit more willing, which I'm glad, because I think Switch is. I'm a big fan of it. It let me play a little bit more video games than than the previous almost zero I was, because at least now I can play on the go a little bit.
Yeah, I mean I got the Wii U and was disappointed.
Right.
I probably just I mainly just want the Switch just for Zelda, because I need to play that.
No, you don't got the Switch yet? Haven't played Zelda?
No, I haven't played. Well, not the new Zelda.
It is fantastic. It was.
Yes, I've heard many good things.
Oh man,
it was called the best debut game for a console ever. Which
I don't know about. Well, I don't know. It was.
I know, it's going up against the original Super Mario world.
Right. Yeah. I guess. It was mighty fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The new Mario on the Switch is fun, but I like the new Zelda more. So anyway,
I'm looking forward.
Yeah, you'll have a blast. It was a ton of fun. And then I don't know, anything else you're playing these days? We are gamers.
Yeah, I'm currently playing through the reboot of Ratchet and Clank on PS4.
Oh, that's cool.
That's where I do most of my gaming, and I play a lot of indie stuff on Steam. Well, I haven't played anything too indie recently. I think the other day I was just playing Faster Than Light. I still play old indie games.
Yeah. No, I go back and play. I'm replaying Morrowind again, which is the best Elder Scrolls game ever.
Yeah, I have been playing Skyrim VR quite a bit.
How has it been?
It's really buggy, of course. I mean, sometimes you've got the two move controllers, and sometimes you'll be holding, and your axe is usually like exactly where you think it would be as you're holding it and swinging it, but then it'll start drifting like 30 feet away. And you're still controlling it as though you're holding it, but it's just so you sort of have to move and get, and you can just. I play with a bow and arrow because you can basically, if you get once you got the action down of knocking your bow and pulling it back and releasing, you can basically use a bow and arrow like a machine gun, and that's quite fun.
That sounds cool. Yeah, interesting. Well, anything else you want to throw out there before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess buy Poncho if you feel like it, or pirate it. I don't really mind. I'm not looking to make money from it at this stage anyway. So, but if you play the game, I hope you like it, and look forward to Change, a homeless survival experience coming out in the next couple of months or so.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Let's see here. Anything else? Nope, that's it, guys. Thank you so much, Danny, for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
Hopefully, I'll have you on again in the future, and I'll be reviewing Change once it comes out. And thanks a bunch.
Alrighty, nice talking to you.
Yep.
That's to us people that can feel things. It hurts.